Hey guys, I'm Al Washington, and welcome to my Mystical Loves podcast. I'm here with five-time Bram Stoker Award-winning author and editor Lee Murray, that's here to talk about her latest book that she co-edited, This Way Lies Madness. It's an anthology book of short stories, collaborating with the biggest names in the horror genre today. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to Lee. Lee, if you want to go ahead and say hi to introduce yourself to everybody.
Hi, Al, and thank you for having me on Mystical Loft. It's fantastic to be here, and yeah, look, I'm excited to tell people about my newest book project, which I've done in conjunction with Dave Jeffrey, a UK editor, and it looks at mental health and horror, mental illness and horror. David and I were both part of the HWA's mental health initiative. We were co-founding co-chairs for 3 years, and we realized that there was really a gap in the market for works that investigated mental illness in a way that didn't stigmatize people, didn't demonize people for their mental illness, and where characters were more than just their mental illness. So we understood that this was just an aspect of their character and not simply the only thing that they had going in the story. So yeah, really interesting project, and like you said, I got to work with some absolute icons in the industry. So it's been a really exciting work to be involved with.
Absolutely, and I definitely agree there, and especially like we said with mental health, I know it's more fictional, but and again, I can't stress this enough because this is my second podcast that I'm dealing with that mental health. I can't stress enough. It's priceless. Your peace of mind is priceless, and I know that certain people cannot control when it comes to mental health with their minds, but just having a book like fictional book, I thought was just fantastic, and you really changing the game when it comes to dealing with mental health, like I said, issues and just fictional, and really bringing out the creativity, especially with the becoming with the mind. So.
Yeah, look, I
Absolutely.
hope so, Al. Look, I wouldn't have done it myself on my own without the collaboration of Dave Jeffrey. He has 30 years experience advocating for people with mental illness and disability in the UK's National Health Service. So already he had this amazing background and understanding of the topic. And he's an incredible horror writer in his own right, a novelist, a short story writer, a poet. So working with him was a great comfort. And then
Absolutely.
for myself, I kind of came from the lived experience perspective. Like I struggle with depression and anxiety. I'm fairly sure I'm neurospicy as well,
Yeah.
although that isn't diagnosed. And yeah, I just haven't been to get that diagnosed, but it sort of runs in the family. So I think that made a difference to people contributing and people submitting to the open call that we made for the anthology. We actually had 1,400 stories submitted.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, I know. So that shows you the huge demand that there was for some kind of work that addressed mental illness and horror, and not in the way that we've traditionally seen it done, where the person with the mental illness is automatically the bad guy or the villain
That's
or
right.
the serial killer, or runs around willy-nilly chopping off arms and legs with the chainsaw, which there's more to it than that, right? We're more
Right.
to it than that. And people with mental illness are not necessarily, well, they're actually in real life, they're actually less likely to harm someone else than they are to harm themselves. So I think that that's a really interesting point. So yeah, so I was, and when lovely for you to use the word groundbreaking. Well, I hope it's groundbreaking. I hope it
Right.
will change people's attitudes. And one of the things about making, an anthology like this, where there's all sorts of different metaphors that address mental illness, it means that people can read it and sort of create a little distance and sort of maybe it might resonate. It speaks to people who might be suffering, who might, have someone in their family or their, a close friend or colleague that's struggling, and they can recognize that through the metaphor, through that lens of fiction, horror fiction, and be maybe give them some hope, maybe give them some tools, maybe give them a bit of just a little bit of that feeling that they're not the only person addressing this, the only person feeling this in the moment, and feel not quite so alone. I think that is one of the hugest the advantages or the biggest value of horror is that it just allows us to address those fears, and give us the feeling that we're just not by ourselves in it, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, absolutely for that. No, I definitely agree with that. And speaking of which, that's what really started this lies madness. But how was it collaborating with some of the biggest names in the horror genre? Since you said you had like over 14,000 stories, but you guys just picked,
1400.
excuse me, 1400,
Yeah.
excuse
Yeah,
me.
sorry. No, but
Yeah,
yeah, working with people like Ramsey Campbell and
right,
Jonathan Maybury and Alma Katsu, Sina Palaeo, we've got some really huge names from around the world. We have Alan Baxter on here as well. We've got some newer writers as well. I'm really proud of that. We have about three people, I believe, that actually got their first short story publication
nice,
in this way, Lies Manner. So that is incredible for those careers, those people in their careers to have their story appear alongside some of these really big names in horror, like household names in horror. Ramsey is probably one of the best known names in horror. And it was wonderful actually because they were all very vulnerable in the
right,
sense that they actually wrote the stories, but they also wrote about a little vignette which tells the reader a little bit about where the story came from and how it has come from their own lived experience, which that is actually a really brave thing to do. It's very brave, no
I
matter who you
agree.
are, to
Yeah,
put yourself out there. But also, it's a little slightly intimidating for me to work with these bigger, writers, but writers who have bigger careers than I have. But
right,
on the other hand, they're just people. And, an editor's role is not to change the story. It's to just give the story that polish, that best, make it the best possible thing that it can be, the most shiny,
yeah,
the thing that's going to, the tightest it can be, and also to fit in the collection in a way that's cohesive and not clunky. And so, as a writer, I always appreciate that from an editor.
right.
That someone else is invested in my work and is interested in making it as polished as it can be. And so, yeah, so in general, the relationship was wonderful. And of course, I always had Dave to refer to. I mean, he had some great ideas as well. It wasn't a one-way conversation. So, and that is, I think, the thing for especially for newbies to understand that when you're working with an editor, it's always a conversation. It's a dialogue about how
That's
this
right.
we can make this work the best it can be and also fit into the anthology as a whole. I mean, in this case, with 1,400 stories, we just chose the stories we knew were going to work.
Okay.
And the often didn't need development. And in other anthologies, sometimes you might have to work with the writer to develop the story in some way. But generally, these stories just needed a little bit of spit and polish. So, and didn't require a great deal of work. So that was a huge bonus for sure. Mostly we're looking too at sensitivity issues,
Hmm.
and making sure those stories were representative and fitted our main mission, which was to destigmatize mental illness in horror.
Absolutely. But you mentioned something that being vulnerable. That's what it feels like when I'm writing. My genre is supernatural horror. I'm in the process of finishing out my first novella for
Oh,
supernatural horror. Oh,
congratulations.
thank
Well
you. I
done.
appreciate it. Thank
It's
you.
a big
There,
milestone, isn't it? That
yes,
first
it is.
thing.
Yes,
It
it is. But
surely is.
it really is. No, and you mentioned being vulnerable, but that's what it feels like. Because I'm writing it down in my head, it makes great. But when I'm writing it down, it just feels like, oh, is this so embarrassing? Or I'm questioning my own mental health when you just mentioned that being vulnerable, just finding your own unique voice. And it's just, I love doing it. I love the genre. So it just feels like when I'm writing it, like, oh my God, am I insane? Am I this? Am I a serial killer? It's just, I don't know. Maybe that's what I feel like. But when you just mentioned, if I being
Yeah,
vulnerable.
we're not the only ones to feel this way. That's the thing, isn't
Right.
it? When you see it written down, you realize, hey, I feel that way too, and I'm not the only one. And of course, all good fiction comes from a place of vulnerability with the author needs to put themselves somewhere in the story for it to resonate, for it to be authentic. So I think you're on the right track if that's how you're feeling.
Oh,
And also remember that, we're horror writers, so we're all just a little bit weird, right? That's just kind of
exactly.
goes with the territory. We're all a bit strange.
Exactly, or creative people are, and that's fine. Like I said, I'm learning to accept that and start worrying about because if I'm consistently worrying about everybody else's opinion, this is not going to work. You're not an artist. You're not going to find your own unique voice if you're consistently worrying about how people are seeing you. Oh my God, they're not all right in the head. But no, it literally, it's like, yeah, in
Yeah.
our mind, we're creating it. Like we feel the fear, we feel scared, and we do. If somebody did hurt us for some reason, we want to hurt them in our minds. We don't do it, for real. Knock on wood, but you know what I mean. Just bringing out.
Yeah. Oh, I have
Yeah.
a writer friend who says, it's just as well I write because I actually can't do these nasty things to
Right.
people who upset me.
Exactly.
It,
Exactly.
it saved me a lifetime in jail.
That's right. Exactly. So yeah, I just think we're just releasing how we feel, but absolutely, yeah, yeah, which goes to my next question because I know to my understanding, this collection is heavily influenced by Edgar Allan Poe's, mainly in the tradition of his Telltale Heart story, dealing with, fictional stories of madness and mental health. And I know with the editing you done, do you happen to have a favorite story for the
Oh,
book?
look, I can't tell you that
Oh,
because that's not
okay.
fair because I love them all, like and when you've read 1,400 stories in order to choose them, you know that these stories that did get in are going to be super, super good,
Okay, that's
like
fair.
really
Yeah.
resonate. But I think in terms of what you're saying around Edgar Allan Poe, there,
Right.
a number of the stories really get into the head of the characters in the same way that the Telltale Heart does, which is kind of a
Oh yeah.
classic story in this genre, which is about, paranormal, paranoia, not
Right.
paranormal,
Aaron. Right, right,
paranoia, about, and that sort of descent into madness that comes from trauma and so I think, well, and guilt and shame and all of those sorts of emotions. And I
right,
think that a lot of the writers here have cottoned on to that is that in order to portray mental illness, we really need to get in the head of the character and understand their motivations and have their internal voice, which is we can do in writing,
right,
because we can have that close internal thought in writing, which you don't necessarily get in a film, for example. It's much harder to do in a film to get in the head of the character. You have to show it through sound or through lighting or through
right.
imagery. But with writing, we can just get ourselves we can get the reader straight in the head of the character so that they can really understand what's going on. And our writers have done that. I think some really good examples from the book were Emily Ruth Verona's story
Okay,
Bangs.
right.
And then Sean Hogan has a wonderful story thing. I think it's called The Dark Gets in
Okay.
here as well. And in fact, almost all of them do that in some way, are very close to, very close. And they use symbolism and metaphor in wonderful ways. So we have a number of first person stories. And I think that's one of the ways that people can particularly address these mental health issues in writing. But there are other techniques as well. Yeah, so there's quite the range.
So when you mentioned regarding bringing out the emotion of the character, that's what I'm having trouble with now, even with my own character. I'm having some trouble with it because it's like I'm not taking myself. I said, Al, this isn't you. Let's take you out. This is something you wouldn't do, but you need to listen to your character and let the character lead you. I'm glad you said that, but because I'm really having trouble really bringing out the emotion in one of my characters in the supernatural horror I'm writing now. Yeah. I,
Time to kill them. That's the usually
right.
if they're not going to behave, then maybe it's time to kill them off.
Or something. Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna keep working on it, but thank you. Yeah, it's definitely very important to really understand the character, especially with their mental mind state for that. Um, but how do you feel that you and your team entering this way lags madness in the Bram Stoker Awards? And for those of you guys who don't know, real quick, the Bram Stoker Awards is one of the most highly respected awards in the horror dark fantasy genre. It's named after Bram Stoker, who wrote the original Dracula. So, how do you guys
Yeah.
feel nominating it?
Oh, look, we've popped it out there and it's not nominated yet. The nomination means that it's got to the final. So, we
Okay.
put it out there and we're hoping that our colleagues in the Horror Association will be interested in supporting it. But there is a huge amount of great work going out. And one of the great things about the Bram Stoker Award is that it doesn't award the best fiction. It awards superior achievement in horror fiction for the year. And because what resonates for one person, it doesn't necessarily for another. We
Right.
like different things, and we bring our own experience to the reading of a book or a novel or a novella or whatever it is.
Hmm.
So look, it's a gambit. We're hoping that it
Absolutely.
will resonate with people, and we will just wait and see. I mean, if it did get on the ballot, we'd be very honoured. I do have 5 of these awards myself.
That's
I
right.
can show you. They
Yes,
look like
please. Absolutely. Ladies and
they look
gentlemen, yes, I told you she's a five-time winner. Yes.
They look like this. So they're
Oh,
absolutely gorgeous, very heavy haunted house. And they have a little door that opens, which tells you what the work was that you won inside.
oh my
So
God, that is
um
nice. I love it.
yeah, they're really gorgeous, aren't they? And
Yes. Oh
yeah,
my
so I've
God.
collected a little village. I've been very lucky, but I do think, when you win one of these, you do have this terrible, well, certainly I do, this terrible imposter syndrome. Like, someone's going to find me out that the work really didn't deserve it or whatever,
Oh,
with because but so it always makes me strive to do a better job the next time so that I can prove that I did really we did really deserve that. But I think in
absolutely.
the case of anthologies, of course, the editor gets surprised, but in fact it's the authors that have done the work. It's all the
Right.
contributors have brought their wonderful stories, who've really brought their A game and lifted the anthology. It always turns out to be something that you didn't expect. So when
Right.
you plan an anthology, you have an idea and the concept and of what you want to achieve with it. And then you put it out to your contributors, and they bring these amazing ideas that you hadn't considered. You haven't even thought of
Right.
interpreting it that way. And so then when the final book comes together, it's always something better and bigger and more amazing than you ever envisaged as the curator. And that's the powerful thing about these collective voices, is that we have all these different perspectives on the same theme, which is, really extraordinary.
Right. And it's highly competition, obviously, just even entering and being nominated or just entering, like I said, an award contest. So
Yeah,
everybody is
you
brave to
have to
me.
be brave. You have to be
Exactly. Be
brave to
brave
put
first.
yourself out there, for
Exactly.
sure,
Yeah,
for
so I
sure.
give it up to those win or lose, that you're taking that initial step, that bravery step to say, you know what, I'm going to put it out there. Congratulations, win or lose. So absolutely,
Yeah,
but you deserve it.
exactly, exactly. And look, there is so much, and wonderful work, and all of it needs celebrating.
That's right.
The publishing is extremely difficult, so we just have to help our community get the word out there as much as possible.
Absolutely. And you want us to all have our own unique voices, definitely just bring it out. So absolutely. I think everybody should still keep going, whether you enter into a contest or not. Just definitely do it. Pursue
Yeah,
it, write it,
yes,
express it.
that's
So you're an
right.
artist.
It will
Yeah.
touch someone for sure. If it's important to you, it'll be important to someone else. So for sure.
Absolutely. Award does not take that away from you. You are an artist and a writer, and definitely just do it. So, but again, that is a bonus. So, congratulations to you with that, and congratulations to
Thank
everybody.
you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what inspired you to become a writer, like an editor? Like, what did somebody or something lit a fire under your ass? Excuse my
Yeah.
language.
Fire under my ass.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I need. Well, actually, I've always been a scribbler. I've really always wanted to write a book. And then my dad kind of said to me, look, don't be a writer because they don't make any money. And always say, you're
Wow.
dead right, Dad. They don't make any money. Well, some of them do, but most of us don't.
Right,
Um, but so I went into science actually, and I became a scientist. And it wasn't until later in life, when my children were little, that my husband said, you can have a go at this. You could make it, you should have a go. You can stop talking about it and just do it. And I think that it gave me permission, if you
right,
like, to
exactly.
say,
Yeah,
I'm a writer. I'm going to write. And as soon as you're writing, you're a writer.
that's right.
I didn't say I was a good writer to start with, and I'm still working on that, on the craft. And
That's right.
interestingly, most of that sort of learning about the craft I did on the job. So I did a lot of critiquing and editing, and editing is the way that I've kind of learned so many skills because when you critique other people's work, you say, oh, that could be tighter here, and I could see a way of doing that. And let's talk about how you could do that. And then I take those skills back to my own work. So it's really because you can't see stuff in your own work. It's really hard to see what's wrong with it. But
That's
you
right.
can look at someone else's work and say, that didn't quite work for me. I wonder why that is, and analyze it and then come up work with that person to come up with some solutions, and then you can apply those skills to your own practice. So, it became it's bizarre, isn't it? But I
Yeah.
actually became a better writer through being an editor.
Interesting. Okay. And you do need to have fresh eyes looking at your work. You're absolutely right. I don't know why some people think that writing one draft is like, oh yeah, it's great, it's perfect, excellent, marvelous. Yeah, okay, in your mind. And they don't want nobody to look at it. Like they'll do one, unless you're like the Michael Jackson of writing or something. I don't know. But you literally, like I said, need to have fresh eyes,
Yeah.
especially for me, because you can't tell because you think when you write it, oh, it's okay. I can see what's wrong with it, but you really need to have those fresh eyes.
That distance, yeah, exactly that. Those other perspectives. I think it's interesting what you say,
Hmm.
Al. And already you're talking about that, which is great. It's a sign
Right.
that you will be a brilliant writer
I'll
because you're
try.
already open to feedback. And I
I
think that
appreciate it.
there are, yeah, the people that say my work is great and it's perfect and it's great. They're often the ones that whose work isn't great because
Right.
they're not open to different approaches or ways of improving their work. Like all of us need
That's right.
need that, and I all, give me the feedback is all I want, like when
Right.
I've got new work that I've written, I'm desperate for good feedback to help me hone it to make it as good as it can be. Yeah, for
You're
sure.
absolutely right. No, it is scary. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, this is stressed out. And I do question myself. I doubt myself sometimes. Like I say, it's like, this is not coming out how I wanted to. The feedback I got, this is not going to, I'm just not going to finish it. That's what it feels like sometimes, but I'm really trying to push myself to keep going. So I wrote for a couple of hours today while I was at my day job, but still, it's just, I'm really trying to get it out and just pressure
Yeah,
myself.
and there's lots of space for that first draft, just get it out on the page because you can't work with something
Right.
if it's not down on the page. So I
Right.
think that's a great process. And if you're just, be vulnerable, just shoot, I think they call it a vomit draft, let's vomit it out on the
Right.
page, and then you've got something to work with, right? And I think
That's
that
right.
that's a good approach. Yeah.
Right, and you can't edit a blank page, we all know this, I know. So, like I said, many things, like you said, if I can't do a sentence, either a piece of dialogue, a letter, number, do some scribbles or some, visual, do some stick figure, something just to get it out of your mind, and then you can go
Hmm.
back. That's just me. I know. I do it like weird. Like I said,
That's a
I'll
good
put this.
approach. That's a great idea. Yeah, and it's
I
still
try.
creative if you're drawing the scene. Yeah, that's a great approach.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah, and again, sometimes it works. Some days I have my days, and some days it'll come out like water. And then there's some days when, anyway. So yeah, I want to.
There's
Another
no one
time.
way. There's no one way, You're dead right. There's no one way. You can just any way that it comes out is good. It's good.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that goes for me and everybody else. Yes. So going back to your editing, mixing in with the good and the bad for editing, do you have challenges as being an editor or do you run in like it's sometimes easy or it's like a challenge? What's your challenges like as an editor if you had like a
I think, it's all about rapport with the people that you're working with and the trust. I've been very lucky that people have trusted me with their stories and given them to me and allowed me to play in their in their story worlds. And I think, you know, um, it's all about that rapport with people. And of course, whenever you're working with people, you have the problem of people.
right,
Everyone is
exactly.
and it's your baby. Your story is your baby. So I think that it's about as an editor treading softly on people's dreams and working with them in a way that allows them to still have autonomy over their own work. And I think that it's a delicate balance. And so the real issue is the best part about being an editor is working with people. And the
Okay.
worst part about being an editor is working with people because it's that is always the way, isn't it?
Right.
But I think generally I've always had really rewarding experiences, and I have so far I can't say I've had any terrible experiences will make me throw in the towel or anything like that. They've all been very positive. So I'm very grateful for the people I've worked with.
Damn, really? Wow, I give it up to you because I cannot be an editor right now. I'm still learning. Like I said, even when complete this person development, I have already three lined up, but I just I I can't edit. I mean, not right now, but I give it up to those who can do it. The patience, what you guys have to endure. I
Yeah, it does require a bit of attention to detail. That's
yes,
for sure. And there's one thing about editing your own work and editing other people's work that's quite a different process, isn't it?
yes,
So, well, no. The thing is that when you edit your own work, you've kind of got to turn off your author brain and you've got to put in your editor brain. And so that's a tricky process. Whereas when you're editing someone else's work, you know it's not yours.
that's
You
right.
might want it to be yours. Sometimes I've edited stories and I go, "Oh, I wish I wrote this story because it's so
Right.
good." But yeah, it's just switching off your author brain is sometimes not that easy, is it?
No, it's not because, like you just said, if I look at somebody else's, it's probably a little more easier for me to point out, okay, well, this is wrong, or punctuation, or grammar, whatever. But God knows my grammar is not up to there either. But my thing is that when I'm writing, and the problem that I'm having, because you said a vomit draft, is that when I'm writing, I'll get stuck. It's like, oh, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. This is a sentence fragment, or a period, or the development editing. Just I don't know, like you said, program. It just feels like I need to learn how to turn it off because instead of me just write it. Don't worry about
Yeah.
punctuation, don't worry about development, just write
Yeah,
it out.
just write it. Yeah, you and me both, hun. I am a really slow writer because I cannot turn that editor brain off. So I'll write a
Right.
sentence and then I'll edit the sentence and then I'll write another sentence and I'll edit that sentence. And
Right. And then you
it's
stop.
diabolical.
Right. Thank you, Lee. That is exactly what it feels like. Like, oh my God, well, this doesn't make sense. Or wait a minute. But if she goes this way, just, Al, just write it. You can't edit a blank page. Just write it out. Draw,
That's
whatever,
it.
like we just talked about earlier.
That's
But yeah,
it.
exactly what it's like. But lastly, we only got a few minutes left. Do you have any tips or pointers for those who want to break in writing, in general, aspiring or beginning, entry level? Any tips or pointers?
Yeah, I think find your tribe, connect with other people, offer to help, offer to read their work and critique their work and swap, reciprocate. Look for a great mentorship program. There are a number of great writing organizations that offer great mentorship programs. So definitely look for those. But reciprocating, joining a community of writers so you have other people around you around the same level who are also working towards that same goal. I think that finding your tribe is kind of vital for what it has for me in
Right.
terms of improving my practice and improving my writing. And also read. I mean, you can't be
Yes.
a writer if you're just not reading this stuff. You need to see what's out there. Um, I don't think you need to worry about your voice that you might lose your voice by reading other people's work. I
Right.
really
Yeah.
don't think that that's possible. Your voice is your voice. Your voice is the story that only you can tell.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but I think and style and that kind of thing that can be adapted, because I can write it. I think when you become skilled, you can write a story in a certain style. You
That's
can do
right.
that. Just like a ventriloquist can speak in a certain way, or someone who does, or a singer can approach it, can take on a different style. And I think a writer can do that too. But in terms of the uniqueness of your work, is the story that only you can tell. And I think so. I think find your tribe. Don't worry too much about losing that unique voice because your unique voice is your unique voice. It will come out in the work that is authentic, that is personal and important to you. It will be on the page. It will come out.
That is
Um,
true. Absolutely. That is true.
yeah,
And like you said, reading, yeah. Everyone, yeah, writers, we do need to read. I know people like, I don't like reading. No, no, no. That's like our bodies need water. So we do need to read as writers.
yes,
Yes.
Absolutely. That our bodies need water and our brains need to read. That's absolutely true. And also our hearts need to read, I think, too, because that's where we find what matters to us.
Yes, you can see the process, and also you can also see that you can open up your imagination, just like the readers that you're reading about. Like I said, anything's possible. Like, wow, I can do something like this, quote unquote. But wow, they really you can open up your mind to so many possibilities. But we know that already. So yeah, absolutely. So. All right, Lewa, thank you very much for coming on with me. Definitely, this is definitely a treat. Thank you so much for that. Guys, and please check out the latest book, This Way Lies Madness, right on Amazon. Definitely get it. Yep, it's showing it. Yes. Moving proudly. So on Amazon,
Yeah.
hard copy, ebook, and everything. Lastly, Lee, you want to say goodbye to everybody or anything else you'd like lastly?
Oh, look, thank you so much for having me, Al. I really appreciate you reaching out and lovely to join your podcast.
Thank
I've really
you.
had a fun time and we really packed in a lot of information into a pretty short time. So, no, I really, really nice to meet you and best of luck with this, with your novella and also with the podcast, Mystical Loft.
Thank you guys very much, Lee. Thank you. And guys, thank you guys for dropping into my mystical loft, and I will see you next time.